Death at Whitechapel. Chapter 6. A revolting murder. A woman found horribly mutilated in Whitechapel. Ghastly crimes by a maniac. A policeman discovers a woman lying in the gutter, her throat cut after she has been removed to the hospital. She is found to be disemboweled. The Star, Friday the 31st of August, 1888. Charles took a cup of steaming tea from Kate and settled back in his chair. The drawing-room at Bishop's Keep was a modest room. The Ardleys had apparently been given to entertaining a few intimate friends rather than a throng, but it was quite pleasant, with tall, well-proportioned windows, a high ceiling, Turkish carpets on the parquet floor, and the gas-walled sconces whose installation he himself had directed. A fire burned brightly in the large fireplace, and across from him on the sofa sat two very beautiful ladies, both wearing the loose and flowing tea gowns that were currently in fashion. His eyes lingered for a moment on the one with the unruly mane of auburn hair, the steady hazel green eyes, and the decisive chin, whom he loved beyond all powers of expression. He smiled at her, then turned to the other. She was attempting to hide, not very successfully, a pained distress. "I'm so grateful," she said in a low voice, "that you have allowed me to come for another visit." Kate leaned forward. "Allowed you?" she exclaimed with a little laugh, her face alight with pleasure. "We're delighted that you chose to come." Jenny Churchill was a woman of wit and charm and of sparkling zest for life, and Charles knew that Kate had enjoyed her earlier visit enormously. "I'm anxious to hear about your progress with Maggie," Kate added. "Does she have a proper name yet? And has Mr. Rayburn located a publisher?" Jenny seemed to brighten. "I've been considering your proposal of the Anglo-Saxon Review," she said. "Winston doesn't favour it, but Mr. Rayburn agrees that it's a fine title, as does Pearl Craigie. I think you know Pearl's work. She writes under the name of John Oliver Hobbs. She has offered a short play for the second or third issue, and yes, it appears that we may have found a publisher, a Mr. John Lane. I'm hoping that the first issue will appear next June if we are successful in attracting sufficient subscribers." "I've been thinking," Kate said, "that a French contributor to each number might add to the international interest." "Well then," Jenny said, "what would you say to Paul Bourget? He's as well known in England as he is in France and America, and a friend. I think I could impose on him for a piece. I should also like to have a scientific article. I'm trying to get Professor Lodge to write something on wireless telegraphy." She made a little face, "although the good professor is not very cooperative." "Charles," Kate said eagerly, "couldn't you ask your friend Mr. Marconi to write something for Jenny's magazine?" In explanation, she added to Jenny, "Charles is quite well acquainted with Mr. Marconi, the inventor of the wireless. He has a laboratory at Chelmsford, which is only 20 or so miles away." "I would be glad to inquire," Charles said. He had been listening with interest to the ladies' conversation. Jenny Churchill was no intellectual, but she was intelligent and well-informed and enormously energetic. In fact, in Charles's view, it was her energy and spirited engagement rather than her beauty that set her apart from the idle women of her class, most of whom watched the world go by with a remote and indifferent lassitude. However she invested that vigorous energy, whether in Winston's high-flown political aspirations or her own ambitious publishing project, she was sure to realize at least some of her goals. "That's very kind of you, Charles," Jenny said. "Please do ask Mr. Marconi if he's interested, and if not, perhaps you would care to offer an article." She paused and a darker look crossed her face. "But Maggie isn't the reason I've come." She glanced under her lashes at Charles. "As you know, the Countess of Warwick and I are friends. She didn't confide the details, but I understand that you and Kate were instrumental in retrieving a certain indiscreet letter that came to her from the Prince." Her smile was gone just as quickly as it had come. "I am in a similar painful situation with a potentially ruinous outcome, not only for myself but also for Winston, whose political career may hang in the balance. I have come to ask for your help." Charles maintained an untroubled expression, but inwardly he was irritated. If Jenny Churchill wanted him to recover a purloined love letter, he would have to disappoint her. He was not going to become society's all-purpose sleuth, covering up the muck of misbegotten love affairs. He held out his empty cup to Kate, who filled it from a silver urn on the tea table. "If you're in need of a detective, I can recommend a man who has retired from the Yard. You'll find him perfectly discreet and extremely able, if it is your letter that you wish to recover." "You have misunderstood." Jenny met Charles's eyes with a candor and determination so fierce that it almost shook him. "I'm speaking about a terrible blackmail." She looked away toward the fire. "The blackmailer's claims are utterly ridiculous. They cannot possibly be, even so long after Randolph's death. Many would be willing to believe anything about him. If the thing ever becomes public," her voice nearly broke, The taint will damn Winston before he has a chance to demonstrate his own merit. His political hopes for himself, and mine for him, will be ruined beyond redemption. He will never sit in Parliament." "The blackmail has to do with Lord Randolph?" Charles asked. "Randy has never been well liked, except by a small circle of friends who shared his interest in horses and gaming, or admired his audacious political maneuverings. The man had made great many enemies in his 45 years, in both high and in low places. It wouldn't be hard to imagine some of them engaging in a spot of blackmail." Jenny's response was measured, but her voice held such tension that it nearly vibrated. "The blackmailer claims to have proved that Randolph was Jack the Ripper." Kate's cup rattled in its saucer. Jack the Ripper? Charles felt relief. Randolph Churchill had led an unruly life, and there was many charges against which he could not be defended. He did not think this was one of them. Jenny picked up the reticule she had brought downstairs with her and took out a square of paper, which showed signs of much folding and unfolding. She handed the paper to Charles. "Read this." The note was written in a scrawling, almost childish hand and adorned with several ink blots. It was neither signed nor dated. Charles read aloud. "Dear Lady Randolph, your late husband may now be beyond the reach of the law, but the sins of the fathers are visited upon the sons. I know who killed Mary Kelly and the others. My silence is worth £100, which you will pay to the boy who calls for it tomorrow. If you don't, the world will know the true identity of Jack the Ripper. Yours respectfully, A. Bird." Charles folded the note and handed it back. "The Ripper, eh? Well, I don't suppose it's anything to bother yourself very much about. Anyone who knows the family will pass it off as libelous. If you hear any more from this chap, I suggest you ask your solicitor to track him down and give his nose a good twist." He raised his eyebrow. "You said something about a proof." Jenny put the note back into her reticule. "That is his claim," she said evasively, "but you're probably right." She composed an uneasy smile. "I fear I've been rather silly about this ridiculous business." Kate frowned. "Jenny, I don't think—" Jenny turned to Kate with a brittle cheer that failed to deceive. "Dear Kate," she said, "I've been dying to hear about Beryl Bartwell's next novel. What can you tell me?"